The Book of Revelation has 22 chapters. The major arcana of the tarot have 22 cards. The Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters. These facts are individually known. What is less widely appreciated is what happens when you lay them on top of each other. Not loosely, not approximately, but precisely. One chapter for one card. In the order both documents actually follow. What you get is not a coincidence. What you get is either the most elaborate accident in the history of symbolic literature, or evidence that John of Patmos and whoever designed the sequence of the major arcana were working from the same source material. Tonight, I want to make that case carefully. I'm going to go through all 22 correspondences. I'm not going to fudge them. The Fool goes with chapter 1 because both are about a solitary figure receiving an unexpected call to journey from a source that they did not prepare for. The Magician goes with chapter 2 because both are about a single operator holding multiple instruments with precise and differentiated skill. The Papess goes with chapter 3 because chapter 3 contains the only explicit references in Revelation to a hidden name that no one knows, and so on, all the way to the World card at chapter 22, where a dancer moves inside a wreath held by 4 living creatures, the same 4 creatures who appear in chapter 4 from Revelation and never entirely leave. If the correspondence is held for 3 or 4 cards, you dismiss it as pattern matching. The human brain finds patterns, that's what it does. But 22 for 22, with the quality of argument increasing as the sequence progresses, rather than diminishing, that deserves a different kind of attention. Before we get there, though, I need to establish some things about the people involved, because one of the more interesting puzzles in this whole area is the question of which John we're dealing with. And the answer is probably not the one you think, possibly not even one. I'm John, and this is Conspiracy Sloth. Christianity has a John problem. Or rather, it has 3 of them, and for most of its history it couldn't decide whether or not they were the same person. John the Baptist is first, executed by Herod Antipas. The forerunner, the voice crying out in the wilderness, the one who prepares the way. He is associated with water, with the Jordan River, with the threshold, the figure who stands at the boundary between old dispensation and the new. In the esoteric reading of his role, John the Baptist is the initiator who does not himself receive the initiation, the one who points but does not enter. His death predates Revelation by about 60 years. He had no part in writing it. But his symbolic position, the voice at the threshold, the figure at the door in transformation, echoes through the document in ways that are not accidental. The initiatory tradition has always had a figure who prepares the way. In the tarot, that figure is arguably the Fool himself. He sets out not knowing what awaits him, and his departure makes the journey possible. John the Evangelist is the author of the 4th Gospel, 3 epistles, and according to tradition that dominated Christian thought from the 2nd century through most of the medieval period, the Book of Revelation. He is identified as the beloved disciple, one who reclined next to Jesus at the Last Supper, the one to whose care Jesus commended his mother from the cross. He is the only one of the 12 apostles who, according to tradition, did not die a martyr's death. He lived to extreme old age in Ephesus. Ephesus, of course, is one of the 7 churches addressed in Revelation. It is the first one. The identification of the Revelation author with the Gospel author is now almost entirely rejected by serious biblical scholarship. The Greek of the Gospel is polished, literary, theologically sophisticated. The Greek of Revelation is idiomatic, full of grammatical irregularities that a native speaker of literary Greek would not produce. They do not read like the same person, the theological frameworks overlapping in some ways and divergent sharply in others. The scholarly consensus, which held for over a century, is that they were different authors who may or may not have shared a community tradition. But the tradition of identification persisted for 17 centuries and left deep marks on how Revelation was read. If the author of the 4th Gospel, who opens with, "In the beginning was the Word," also wrote Revelation, then Revelation is a mystical document by a mystical author. If they're different people, Revelation's author is more obscure, more isolated, and the question of where his vision framework came from becomes much more open. John of Patmos is actually who wrote Revelation. He identifies himself that way in the text. I, John, your brother and companion, in the suffering and in the kingdom and in patient endurance that are ours in Jesus, was on the island of Patmos. That's it. That's all we know about him from the text. He was in exile on Patmos, which was used by Rome as a place to send political and religious troublemakers who were too minor to execute, but inconvenient to leave at large in the cities. He was apparently in exile for his testimony about Jesus. And on a specific day, the Lord's Day, which was probably Sunday, he received what he describes as a vision. Now, Patmos. Patmos is a small island in the Aegean, part of the Dodecanese chain, about 13 kilometers long. It is not a random place of exile. It has been, for centuries before the Roman period, a significant site in the Greek religious landscape. The island was sacred to Artemis. There was a major temple to Artemis on Patmos that predated the Roman period. The cave is now venerated as the site of John's vision. The grotto of the Apocalypse sits on a hillside that would have been in the vicinity of that sacred precinct. This matters for a reason that the standard treatment of Revelation consistently ignores. You do not receive visions at random. The ancient world understood specific places as thin, as locations where the boundary between ordinary perception and whatever lies beyond it became more permeable than elsewhere. Sacred geometry was not superstition. It was recognition that certain physical locations, through long use, through geological peculiarity, through accumulated ritual attention, functioned differently from ordinary ground. The oracle at Delphi sat over a geological fissure that emitted pneuma, vapors, possibly ethylene, that have been confirmed now by geochemical analysis. The oracle worked at a specific place because that place did something specific. Patmos was sacred to Artemis long before it was sacred to Christianity. The hill where the vision came was already understood as a place where things could be heard that were not audible elsewhere. John of Patmos was not just a man sitting on a rock. He was a trained religious practitioner, placed by political accident at a site that his own tradition would have recognized as significant, on a day set aside for focused spiritual attention. The conditions for visionary experience were assembled. The vision came. What the vision contained, and the framework of the understanding that he brought to it, is what we need to look at next. The tarot has an origin story that is almost certainly wrong in its historical details and probably not wrong in its deeper implications. Antoine Coeur de Gébelin, a French Protestant pastor and Freemason, published a speculative essay in 1781 claiming that the tarot was a remnant of the Book of Thoth, an ancient Egyptian initiatory text that encoded the complete wisdom, according to him, of the Egyptian priestly class. He had seen the cards in Paris and had no previous knowledge of them, but immediately recognized in them what he called the theology of ancient Egypt. He had no hard evidence for this. The cards are at best documented to northern Italy in the 15th century and possibly to gypsies in Eastern Europe a little bit before that. De Gébelin's Egyptian attribution had little to no physical support in the archival record. But here's the thing about De Gébelin that's worth sitting on. He was wrong, probably, potentially, about the provenance. He was possibly not wrong about the resonance. The major arcana's iconographic system does show structural parallels with Egyptian religious imagery that goes way beyond what you'd expect from coincidence or from the general European awareness of Egypt that existed in the medieval and late medieval period. The Wheel of Fortune has a structural parallel in the Egyptian concept of cyclical time, and the Nun, the primordial waters of chaos that underlie the cosmos. The hanged man's inverted posture echoes the Egyptian depictions of the suspended or inverted figure in the book of What is in the Underworld, specifically in the hours where the solar bark travels through the inverted realm. The judgment imagery of card 20 has obvious parallels to the Hall of Two Truths that we covered in the last episode. More significantly, both the tarot's major arcana and the Egyptian funerary texts share the core structural principle that we identified in episode 2, an initiatory journey through successive encounters with named powers, in which the quality of the traveler's recognition determines the outcome. The Egyptian Book of Coming Forth by Day is a navigation manual. The Tarot's major arcana, as Hall reads it, is a navigation manual, the same kind of document with a different encoding. The most likely explanation is not that tarot derived directly from Egyptian documents. It's that both the tarot and the Egyptian system derived from a common, older tradition. The initiatory curriculum of the mystery schools that operated across the ancient Mediterranean world, whose roots are older than the Egyptian texts we have access to, and whose survival through the Hellenistic and Roman periods into the medieval world was exactly the kind of underground transmission that these traditions were built to achieve. John of Patmos was operating in that same world. The Aegean in the 1st century CE was saturated with mystery school traditions. The Eleusinian mysteries, the Orphic tradition, the Pythagorean schools, the various Egyptian mystery cults that had spread through the Hellenistic diaspora. Whether he was formally initiated into any of them, whether he encountered their symbolism as hostile Jewish Christian practitioner who nevertheless absorbed its imagery, or whether his vision independently accessed the same symbolic reservoir, the framework that he used to organize and transmit what he received draws from the same well. There is also the Canaanite thread, which is the one most likely to make biblical scholars uncomfortable. The Gnostic traditions that preserved pre-Yahwehist views of Canaanite theology, largely from the Ugaritic, which was the theological inheritance of the Levant before the Israelite reform movements of the Second Temple era that consolidated it into monotheism, described a world with a divine council that predated the exclusive sovereignty of any single deity. El, the high god of the Canaanite pantheon, presided over a council of divine sons. The 70 sons of El were given the nations to govern. Yahweh was among them, one of the sons, not initially the supreme figure. This is not a fringe position. Dr. Michael Heiser and others who have worked in the mainstream of Old Testament scholarship have documented that this understanding of the divine council bleeds through into the Hebrew Bible in places that were never fully edited out by the Deuteronomists. The Dead Sea Scrolls preserve a text where nations are divided according to the number of the sons of God rather than the sons of Israel, which is what is in the standard Masoretic text. The Greek translation also preserves sons of God. The Masoretic revisions changed it. Someone cared enough to change it. What passed through the Gnostics, who were in many cases preserving pre-canonical and paracanonical material that the emergent Orthodox Church was systematically suppressing, was the older framework, the divine council, the differentiated hierarchy of powers with actual authority over specific domains. The archons as legitimate, or illegitimate depending on your tradition, rulers of the planetary and subplanetary realms. Revelation's throne room is a divine council scene. 24 elders, 4 living creatures, possibly archangels, the one on the throne, the Lamb. They sing together, they deliberate, they act. This is the council. Whether you read it as the Theosophical tradition's benevolent hierarchy or the Gnostic tradition's archonic prison management depends on what you think about the council's relationship to you and what it actually is. But both readings agree that the council exists and that it has authority. John of Patmos was writing into a tradition that preserved the council. He encoded it in the text that was then read for 2,000 years by people who didn't have the key. The key is the tarot. Let's walk through it together. 22 correspondences. I'm going to go through every one of them, spending more time on the strongest and less on the ones that just need their argument stated. Take notes if you want to check me in the comments. These are the texts. Card 0, the Fool, Revelation chapter 1. The Fool in the Marseilles Tarot deck is a young man in ragged, motley clothes, walking forward with a stick and a bundle over his shoulder. He is near a cliff. He does not look down. A small dog or animal nips at his heels, in some readings tearing off his clothes, drawing blood, driving him forward. His face is turned away from where he is going. He has not arrived anywhere. He is about to begin. Chapter 1 of Revelation opens with John on Patmos. He is alone. He is in exile. On the Lord's day, he is, as he puts it, in the spirit, an altered state of perception, when, without warning, a voice like trumpet blares behind him. He turns. He turns, he does not know what he is turning toward. He is not prepared for this moment. He has no map, no instructions, no framework yet for what he is about to see. He just turns because a voice told him to, and the vision begins. The fool does not choose to start the journey. The journey starts when the cliff edge and the animal and the open road combine to make staying in place impossible. John does not choose to receive the vision. The vision chooses him. Both documents open with the same moment, before knowledge, the last instant of the uninitiated state, the figure poised at the threshold, with everything still potential and nothing yet realized. The fool is numbered 0. He stands outside of the sequence. Chapter 1 of Revelation is a prologue, a framing, an orientation before the vision proper begins. In the Marseilles tradition, the fool can appear at any point in the sequence. He is the principle of beginning, and that is always available. John of Patmos is writing from that position throughout. He is the one who receives and transmits without claiming to be the source. The Magician. Card 1. Revelation chapter 2. The magician stands at a table, on which lie the implements of the 4 suits: cup, coin, sword, and wand. He holds one implement up. He is the operator, the one who directs specific tools to specific purposes with precision and skill. The lemniscate, the figure 8 on its side, the infinity symbol, floats above his head in later decks, suggesting mastery of the cycle, the infinity of available operations. He is active will made visible. Chapter 2 contains the letters to the 4 churches: Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamon, Thyatira. The figure addressing them, Christ as John experiences him, is described holding 7 stars in his right hand, walking among 7 golden lampstands, with a sharp 2-edged sword emerging from his mouth, eyes like blazing fire, feet like polished bronze. To each church, he applies a different instrument with precise and differentiated effect. To Ephesus, condemnation for endurance, criticism for losing their first love. To Smyrna, encouragement under persecution. To Pergamon, rebuke for tolerating specific false teachings. To Thyatira, the longest and most complex mix of praise and warning, addressed to specific factions within the community. The magician's table of 4 implements corresponds to the 4 churches, each receiving its specific tool. The figure walking among the lampstands who holds the stars is the magician, the operator who knows which instruments to apply where. The chapter is the demonstration of differentiated, skilled, directed attention, the same principle the first numbered card encodes. Card 2. The Papess, Revelation chapter 3. The Papess, the female pope, sits between 2 pillars, holding a book that is partially closed or only partially visible. She is the principle of hidden knowledge. She knows something. The book contains something. It is not yet given to you. She represents the esoteric tradition that maintains itself in concealment, that is present and visible, but whose content requires qualification to access. Chapter 3 contains the letters to Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. Within these letters, 2 moments stand out. To Philadelphia, the letter says, "I will write on him my new name," and then, "which no one knows but he who receives it." The hidden name, not metaphorically hidden, explicitly, textually described as a name unknown to any but its recipient. This is the Papess's book, of course. The knowledge that exists and is real and is present and is not disclosed to the general reader. To Sardis, the letter says, "You have a name that you are alive, but you are dead." The name and the reality beneath the name are different things. The name can lie. The Papess's partially closed book contains the name that does not lie, the hidden one, the one written on the person rather than spoken in public. The Papess does not give you the book. She shows you that it exists. Chapter 3 shows you the book exists, the hidden name, the door that stands open because the one who opened it holds the key of David, and so no one can shut it. The knowledge is there. The chapter ends with Laodicean lukewarmness and the famous image of Christ knocking at the door. The door is closed. The knowledge is on the other side of it. This is the Papesses chapter. Card 3, the Empress, Revelation chapter 4. The Empress is Venus. She is the creative feminine principle, the abundance of generated form, the fullness of the created world seen from above as a coherent and beautiful totality. She sits enthroned, sometimes bearing a scepter, sometimes a shield with an eagle, sometimes simply surrounded by the natural abundance that flows from her presence. She is not power over the world. She is the world's own self-presentation when seen clearly. Chapter 4 is the great throne room vision. John is called up through an open door in heaven. What he sees is described in terms of overwhelming sensory fullness. A throne, and one seated on it whose appearance is like jasper and carnelian. A rainbow like an emerald encircles the throne. 24 elders seated on 24 surrounding thrones. 7 torches of fire. A sea of glass like crystal. And around the throne 4 living creatures covered entirely in eyes, front and back, on their 6 wings everywhere. They never rest. Day and night they say, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." This is the Empress's chapter. The world as it actually is, seen from the perspective that ordinarily we cannot hold. The 4 living creatures covered in eyes see everything simultaneously. The sea of glass-like crystal is the surface of reality made transparent. The Empress is abundance and beauty and the fullness of created form. And chapter 4 is that abundance displayed in its purest state, before any of the seals are opened, before any consequence is set in motion. The world as it is when the Empress holds it. Card 4, the Emperor, Revelation chapter 5. The Emperor is Mars. He is authority established by right rather than merely by force, the principle of legitimate sovereignty, of the power that holds because it has earned the right to hold. He sits on his throne with the symbols of authority, the scepter, the orb. The question his card raises is always, what gives you the right? The Emperor's answer is, I have earned it. I have gone through what was required. I hold by right. Chapter 5 is the central crisis of the entire book of Revelation, and it is precisely about the question of right. A sealed scroll with 7 seals is held in the right hand of the one on the throne. A strong angel proclaims with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to break its seals?" No one in heaven, on earth, or under the earth can open it. John weeps. Then one of the elders says, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." John looks and sees, in the middle of the throne, a lamb standing down as if it had been slaughtered. The lamb takes the scroll. The 4 living creatures fall down. The 24 elders fall down. 10,000 times 10,000 angels sing. The Emperor's chapter. Who has the right to open what is sealed? Not by appointment, not by force, but by having gone through the slaughter and come back. The Lamb is the Emperor because the Lamb has earned it. The throne room recognizes the legitimate authority the moment that it enters. This is the Emperor's principle. Right relationship to power. Authority that does not need to announce itself because what it has been through is visible. Card 5. The Pope. Revelation chapter 6. The Pope, or Hierophant in some decks, is the mediating principle. He sits between the earthly and the divine, holding the keys to the space between them. He does not himself hold ultimate authority. He administers it. He opens what the authority has been delegated to him to open. His function is transmission, the movement of consequence from the divine level to the human level through the channel of established spiritual authority. Chapter 6 is the opening of the seals. The Lamb, who has earned the authority in Chapter 5, opens the seals one by one. With each opening, a consequence is released into the world. The 4 horsemen: white horse, red horse, black horse, pale horse, war, famine, pestilence, death. The 5th seal: the souls under the altar crying out for justice. The 6th seal: the great cosmic disruption. The sun goes black. The moon turns blood red. The stars fall. Every mountain and island is moved. The Pope's function is to open the channel between the divine decision and the human world. He does not create the consequence. He transmits it. The Lamb does not directly cause the horsemen to ride. The Lamb opens the seal, and what was inside comes through. This is transmission, mediation, the administration of what was already decided. The Pope's chapter. Card 6, the Lovers, Revelation chapter 7. The Lovers card in the Marseilles deck is not primarily a romantic image. The Marseilles version shows a young man standing between 2 women, with Cupid or an angel overhead, arrow aimed. The traditional interpretation, which Hall follows, is that this is the moment of fundamental choice. Which principle do you serve? But in the deeper reading, the card is also about sealing, about the union that marks you as belonging to a particular path. The arrow from above doesn't just represent desire, it represents the divine sealing of the choice, the confirmation from outside the human will that the orientation is recognized. Chapter 7 of Revelation opens with 4 angels holding back the 4 winds of the earth. Then a 5th angel comes from the east bearing the seal of the living God and cries to the 4, "Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have marked the servants of our God with a seal on their foreheads." And 144,000 are sealed, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes. Then John sees the great multitude, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne, clothed in white, crying, "Salvation belongs to our God." An elder tells John, "These are the ones who have come through the great tribulation. They have washed their robes white in the blood of the Lamb. God will shelter them. The Lamb will shepherd them to the springs of living water. God will wipe every tear from their eye." The sealing is the lovers' union. The 144,000 are sealed to their source, marked, chosen, protected. The great multitude in white are the ones who made the choice and lived through the tribulation. The arrow from above is the seal on the forehead. Chapter 7 is the chapter of confirmed commitment, the recognized union, the divine acknowledgement of what was chosen, the Lovers chapter. Card 7, the Chariot, Revelation chapter 8. The chariot is directed force in motion. The charioteer holds the opposing forces, the 2 horses, sometimes depicted as differently colored, sometimes differently oriented, not with reins but through presence and will. The chariot does not stop to ask permission. It has been prepared, and now it moves. The principle is mastery in motion, the capacity to hold tension productively while advancing. Chapter 8 is one of the most structurally dramatic chapters in Revelation. The 7th seal is opened, and there is silence in heaven for about half an hour. Nothing. The pause before the acceleration. Then, 7 angels receive 7 trumpets. Another angel comes with a golden censer, fills it with fire from the altar, and hurls it to earth. Thunder, lightning, earthquake. Then the first 4 trumpets sound in rapid succession. A third of the earth burned up. A third of the sea turned to blood. A third of the rivers poisoned by the star wormwood. A third of the sky darkened. 4 directed strikes, precise in their scope, each striking a third, not everything, a third. The silence before the trumpets is the chariot being held in readiness. The half-hour pause is the gathering of directed force before release. Then it moves, and it does not stop moving until all 4 blasts have landed. This is the chariot's chapter. The prepared, directed, unstoppable movement of consequences that have been assembled and are now in motion. Card 8. Justice. Revelation chapter 9. Justice, in the Marseilles deck, is a crowned figure seated between two pillars, sword upright in one hand, scales level in the other. The scales don't negotiate. The sword doesn't apologize. Justice is not about punishment. It is about exact correspondence. What is done produces what it produces with perfect precision. The scales are level not because they were made level by anyone's choice, but because that is what equilibrium looks like. Chapter 9 is the 5th and the 6th trumpets, and it is the most numerically precise chapter in the book. The 5th trumpet. The shaft of the abyss is opened, smoke pours out, and locusts emerge, but locusts with a specific limitation. They are forbidden to harm the grass or any plant. They are forbidden to harm those who have the seal of God. They may only harm those without the seal, for 5 months, not forever, 5 months. The justice of the exemption is exact. The seal is the measure. The 6th trumpet. 4 angels bound at the Euphrates are released at an exact hour, day, month, year. Their army, 200 million mounted troops. They kill a third of humanity. Then the chapter ends with a sentence that is justice made explicit. The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the work of their hands. The accounting is stated plainly. The consequence was measured and applied. The response was measured and found unchanged. Justice does not express frustration. It records. Card 9. The Hermit. Revelation chapter 10. The hermit stands alone on a path at the edge of a precipice, holding a lantern out before him. He is old. He is hooded. He has withdrawn from ordinary engagement to develop a particular quality of seeing that only solitude produces. He knows something that cannot be learned in company, and he does not hoard it. He holds out the light. But the light is small, and the path is dark, and what he knows is available only to those who come close enough to see by his particular lamp. Chapter 10 is the most personally intimate chapter in Revelation. A mighty angel comes down from heaven, clothed in cloud, a rainbow over his head, his face like the sun, his legs like pillars of fire. He straddles the sea and the land, roars like a lion, and 7 thunders speak in response. John is told to seal up what the 7 thunders said and not write it down. The sealed knowledge is explicitly refused to the general reader. Then the angel holds out a little scroll, open, and tells John to take it and eat it, sweet in the mouth, bitter in the belly. John eats the scroll. Then, you must again prophesy about many peoples and nations and languages and kings. This is the Hermit's chapter, the private transmission that cannot be communicated, only received. The sealed knowledge of the 7 thunders that is not given to the reader. The scroll that must be eaten, not read at a distance, but taken in, made part of the body, accepted as the source of the bitterness that comes with integration. The Hermit's lantern gives you a light that is his. It costs him. The sweetness and the bitterness are his description of what it costs. The middle of the sequence is where the real argument lives. These are the cards that the prophecy industry has made the most dramatic reading of, and where the initiatory reading procedures produce the most surprising results. Card 10. The Wheel of Fortune. Revelation chapter 11. The Wheel of Fortune shows a wheel with figures ascending and descending, the Sphinx at the top, the jackal or human figure on the way down, another rising on the other side. No one stays at the top. No one stays at the bottom. The wheel turns because turning is what wheels do. The principle is not cruelty, it is cycle, the impersonal revolution of fortune that operates at a level above individual will and preference. Chapter 11 is the chapter of the 2 witnesses. They prophesy for 1,260 days. They are killed by beasts from the abyss. Their bodies lie in the street for 3.5 days, while the inhabitants of the earth celebrate and send gifts to each other. Then the breath of life enters them. They rise. Their enemies watch. They ascend in a cloud. Down, then up. Down so far that their enemies celebrate. Then up again to a cloud, to the heavens. The wheel turns. Then the seventh trumpet sounds, the last of the seven. And the elders sing, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Messiah, and he will reign forever and ever." What was beneath has become what is above. The great turn of the cosmic cycle, the moment when the wheel's rotation completes a full revolution and the bottom is now the top. The Ark of the Covenant appears in the temple in heaven. Lightning, thunder, earthquake, great hail. The wheel, at its turning point, produces these things, not as punishment, as the physical expression of energy released when the cycle completes. Card 11. Strength, Fortitude. Revelation chapter 12. In the Marseilles deck, card 11 is La Force, strength or fortitude. A woman opens or gently closes the mouth of a lion with her bare hands. No weapon, no armor, no trick. She is managing a force that could destroy her through a quality of clear, sustained presence. The card's Latin title is Fortitudo, endurance under pressure, the specific kind of courage that does not overpower but perseveres. Chapter 12 is the central mythological vision of Revelation. The woman, clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, a crown of 12 stars on her head. She is in labor. A great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems waits to devour her child. She gives birth. The child is caught up to God's throne. The dragon pursues the woman. She is given 2 wings of a great eagle and flown to the wilderness, where she is nourished for a time, times and half a time. The dragon pours water from its mouth like a river to sweep her away, and the earth opens and swallows the river. Michael and the angels war against the dragon. The dragon is thrown down. A voice declares, "Now has come the salvation and power and kingdom of our God." The woman does not defeat the dragon. She endures it. She is carried. The earth helps her. What sustains her is not superior force, but the sustained refusal to be destroyed. Exactly the quality of Fortitudo, of the woman with the lion's mouth. The dragon has more apparent power. The woman survives through a quality of presence that power cannot touch. This is Strength's chapter. Card 12. The Hanged Man. Revelation chapter 13. The Hanged Man hangs from a T-shaped bar or living tree by one ankle, the other leg crossed behind. His hands are behind his back, or occasionally shown bound. In the best Marseille version, his expression is serene, sometimes luminous. He is not a man being punished. He is a man who has chosen a posture of voluntary suspension, the inversion that allows him to see the world from the perspective that ordinary upright consciousness refuses. He has given up the capacity to act the ordinary way. He waits, he endures, he sees differently. Chapter 13 is the mark of the beast. The beast from the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns, the beast from the earth that makes the first beast's image speak, the number 666 or 616, the instruction to buy and sell only with the mark. And then, the line that has haunted Christian interpretation for 2,000 years, and that makes complete sense only in light of the Hanged Man. If anyone is to go into captivity they will go. If anyone is to be killed with the sword they will be killed. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of God's people. Patient endurance. The text uses the phrase. The Hanged Man is patient endurance made into an image. The instruction of chapter 13 is, do not resist the captivity through force. Go into it with the quality of the Hanged Man, the voluntary acceptance of an inverted position that the upright world considers defeat, and that the initiatory tradition considers preparation. The Hanged Man hangs before the death card for exactly this reason. You cannot arrive at the transformation that comes next without first accepting the suspension. Chapter 13 is the instruction to hang. Card 13. Death. Revelation chapter 14. Card 13 has no name in many Marseilles decks. Just the number and the image, a skeleton with a scythe moving across a field in which heads and hands and feet protrude from the earth. The skeleton cuts them down. A crowned head, a woman's head, hands, feet, the components of the old structures, harvested. Not arbitrary destruction, harvest. The scythe doesn't cut what hasn't ripened. Chapter 14 opens with the 144,000 standing on Mount Zion with the Lamb, singing a new song that no one could learn except those who had been redeemed. Then 3 angels fly in succession, the eternal gospel proclaimed to every nation, Babylon fallen, Babylon is fallen, and the warning that whoever takes the mark will drink the wine of God's wrath. Then, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. The rest in their labor, the record in their works follows them. Then 2 harvests. One, like the Son of Man with a sharp sickle, swings it across the earth, and the earth is harvested. The grain harvest, the gathering of the ready. Then another angel, with another sharp sickle, gathers the clusters of vines on the earth, and throws them into the great winepress of God's wrath. Blood flows from the press for 1,600 stadia, as high as a horse's bridle. The unnamed death card, 2 harvests in the same chapter. The gentle and the terrible, the grain and the grape, the gathering and the pressing. The same scythe, the same principle. What has ripened is cut. The blood as high as a horse's bridle is not torture, it is pressing. The wine requires the press. The death card does not kill the fool. It harvests what the fool was carrying. Chapter 14 is the chapter of the completed harvest. Card 14. Temperance. Revelation chapter 15. Temperance shows an angel, usually winged, sometimes in flowing robes, pouring liquid from one vessel to another. The liquid flows up between the vessels, defying gravity. The card's name in Latin is temperantia, the mixing in exact proportion, the alchemical process of combining elements to produce something that neither element alone could be. It is not moderation in the weak sense, it is precise, active, skilled blending. Chapter 15 is brief, only 8 verses, and it is almost entirely about the preparation before the final bowls are poured. 7 angels with 7 plagues. Then, a sea of glass mingled with fire. Those who had been victorious over the beast stand on the sea of glass, holding harps. They sing the song of Moses and the song of the Lamb simultaneously. 2 songs, 1 voice. The song of Moses, the oldest song of deliverance in Hebrew tradition, from crossing of the Red Sea, and the song of the Lamb in the New Covenant, sung together in the same moment. The sea of glass mingled with fire, 2 elements mixed, the clarity of the glass and the energy of the fire in one surface. The 7 angels receive 7 bowls from one of the 4 living creatures. The mixing, the precise blending before the final act. The 2 songs as 2 streams flowing between the vessels of the temperance card. The sea of glass mixed with fire as the card's upward flowing liquid between 2 cups. Chapter 15 is the preparation, the exact proportion, the holding of 2 things in one moment before the final sequence begins. Card 15. The Devil. Revelation chapter 16. The devil in the Marseilles deck is not a tragic figure. It is not Lucifer, beautiful and fallen. It is a rough, hybrid entity, part goat, part bat, part human, standing on a pedestal to which 2 smaller figures are chained. The chains are loose around their necks. The figures could remove them. They don't. Manly P. Hall's reading? The devil represents the principle of materiality, of the appetites and drives that operate below conscious choice, binding their host not by force, but by the host's own preference for the chains. Chapter 16 pours the 7 bowls of God's wrath on those who bear the mark of the beast, on those who chose the chains. Each bowl lands precisely on those who made the choice the devil's card warned about. Painful sores on those with the mark. The sea turns to blood. The rivers and springs turn to blood. The sun scorches people with fire. Darkness covers the beast's kingdom. The Euphrates dries up. 3 unclean spirits like frogs come from the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. Then Armageddon is named, the place of gathering. Then the 7th bowl. It is done. The great earthquake. The great city split into 3. The cities of the nations collapse. Babylon remembered before God. Every island fled. Every mountain vanished. 100-pound hailstones. The devil's card's consequence made total. The bowls land on those who bore the mark of the beast because the mark was the mark of the choice of the loose chain. Chapter 16 does not punish innocence. It delivers the exact content of the choice back to the chooser. The frogs from the mouths of the dragon and the beast are the speech of the system speaking to itself, the devil's domain producing its own conclusion. Card 16. The Tower. Revelation chapter 17. The tower is struck by lightning from above. The crown, the false pinnacle, is blown off. 2 figures fall from the battlements. The structure collapses downward. This is the best card in the deck, although it is the most feared. What falls is the false construction, the edifice built on a foundation that was not what it claimed to be. The lightning does not destroy indiscriminately. It reveals the structural inadequacy that was always present. Chapter 17 is the explanation of the Whore of Babylon. An angel shows John a woman seated on a scarlet beast, clothed in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding a golden cup full of abominations, drunk with the blood of the saints. On her forehead a name, Mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes. She sits on 7 mountains, 7 hills, Rome. The angel explains, the beast she rides will turn on her. The 7 kings will hate the prostitute. Then they will burn her with fire. The tower destroys itself. The false system is dismantled by its own components. The beast that the whore rode on turns on the whore. The system built on the selling of human souls, which chapter 13 named explicitly, cannot sustain itself. The tower's lightning is internal. The crown is blown off because the structure generates the conditions of its own deconstruction. Chapter 17 is the tower's chapter, not because something external strikes Babylon, but because the angel explains why Babylon falls by its own design. The secret of the mystery revealed. It was never solid. The lightning was always inside of it. Card 17. The Star. Revelation chapter 18. After the tower, the star. A naked woman kneels by a pool under 8 stars, 1 large, 7 smaller, pouring water from 2 jugs, 1 into the pool and 1 onto the land. The star is the first clear light after the structure falls. Not the full light, not the moon or the sun yet, but the steady, modest, reliable guidance that becomes visible precisely because the false architecture that was blocking it is gone. She pours from 2 vessels simultaneously without spilling. She is the principle of orientation in the open space left by the collapse. Chapter 18 is the fall of Babylon narrated. Merchants weeping from afar, sailors standing far off watching the smoke of her burning. The full inventory of what Babylon traded, ending with, and human souls. The lament is real. The merchants weep because their system is gone. But in the middle of this chapter, a voice from heaven speaks. Come out of her, my people, so that you do not take part in her sins, so that you do not share in her plagues. Come out. Leave the collapsed structure. Move away before the smoke engulfs you. The star's invitation. The two jugs the star pours out are the two streams of what is now available in the open space. The water that feeds the pool, the water that feeds the land, both flowing without the tower's obstruction. Come out. The star is speaking. Chapter 18 is the star's chapter, the guidance that becomes visible as the false structure fails, pointing away from the ruins. Card 18, the Moon. Revelation chapter 19. The moon illuminates incompletely. In the Marseilles deck, the moon face shines down on a landscape with two towers. Not the tower card's tower, but watchtowers, boundaries. And two animals, a dog and a wolf, or two dogs. A crustacean emerges from the pool below. The light is uncertain. Shapes are visible, but not fully resolved. You are very close to the destination and simultaneously in the most confusing terrain. What appears solid may be the boundary of something else. What appears to be one thing may be two. Chapter 19 opens with a fourfold hallelujah, the only occurrence of the word hallelujah in the New Testament, appearing 4 times in rapid succession. Heaven celebrates the fall of Babylon. The marriage of the Lamb is announced. The bride has made herself ready. Then the rider on the white horse. Here is the moon's quality made explicit. The rider has 3 names. The first is unknown, a name written on him that no one knows but himself. Then the word of God. Then a name written on his thigh. King of kings and Lord of lords. 3 names, 2 hidden, 1 visible. The full truth of what is coming is not disclosed. It cannot be, because the moon's light is not the sun's light. You see enough to follow, you do not see everything. Then the great supper of God. The birds summoned to eat the flesh of kings and captains and the powerful. The marriage supper of the Lamb and the supper of the birds simultaneously in the same chapter. Celebration and consumption, joy and carnage on the same page. The moon's ambivalence, the threshold experience, the liminal state where the same event is both things at once. Chapter 19 is the moon's chapter. Card 19, the Sun. Revelation chapter 20. The Sun card shows 1 or 2 children in a garden under the full midday sun. Sunflowers nearby, a low wall behind. The light is unambiguous. The figures are naked or nearly so, nothing concealed, nothing requiring concealment. The sun is the principle of full, clear, unmediated light. It is not searching light. It is not guiding light. It is just there, steady, complete. Chapter 20 gives us the 1,000-year reign, the millennium. Satan is bound with a great chain and locked in the abyss for 1,000 years. The first resurrection occurs. Those who had not worshipped the beast or received its mark come to life and reign for 1,000 years. The long day. Then, at the end of the 1,000 years, Satan is released for a little while. He gathers Gog and Magog, surrounds the beloved city, and fire comes down from heaven and devours them. Satan is thrown into the lake of fire. Then the great white throne. Earth and sky flee from the face of the one seated on it. The dead stand before the throne. Books are opened. The book of life is opened. Death and Hades give up their dead. Each person is judged according to what they had done. The Sun's chapter. The full light of the millennium. The long clear day of the 1,000 years, and then the final accounting. The sun does not avoid the accounting. The full light makes the accounting possible. You cannot judge what you cannot see. The great white throne is the sun's cards, and its comprehensive clarity turned toward the record. Card 20, Judgment. Revelation chapter 21. Card 20 shows an angel in the clouds sounding a trumpet. Below, figures rise from open coffins. A man, a woman, a child, arms raised. The standard reading is the Last Judgment, and in one sense that's correct. But the important thing about the Judgment card is what it is not. It is not a scene of condemnation. Everyone in the image is rising. The trumpet calls and the response is assent. The card is about the reconstitution of what was dispersed, the gathering of the elements into the self, into their completed, integrated, fully present form. Chapter 21 is the new heaven and the new earth. The first heaven and the first earth have passed away, and the sea is no more. The new Jerusalem comes down out of the heaven, from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. A loud voice comes from the throne. See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eye. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more. The New Jerusalem is described in loving architectural detail. The 12 gates, the 12 foundations, the jasper walls, the pure gold streets, and the 12 kinds of precious stones, but no temple in it, because the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb are its temple. No sun, no moon, because the glory of God is its light. The judgment card's trumpet calls into the scattered presence. Chapter 21 is the arrival of what has been called into the presence, the new city, the new condition, the state in which nothing is lost because everything has been reconstituted. The wiping away of every tear is not consolation, it is completion. The tears were evidence of what was incomplete. They are gone now because the incompletion is resolved. Card 21, The World, Revelation chapter 22. The World card shows a dancing figure inside an oval wreath, surrounded at the four corners by the four living creatures: lion, ox, eagle, man. The dancer holds two wands. The figure is in motion, not arriving, not departing, but dancing in the state of completed, integrated presence. The four creatures at the corners are not guards, they are witnesses. The wreath is not a cage, it is the boundary of the completed self, the form of the journey's integration. Chapter 22 opens with the river of the water of life, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb through the middle of the great street of the city. On either side of the river, the tree of life bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit each month, and the leaves of the tree for the healing of the nations. No more curse. The servants of God will see his face. His name will be on their foreheads. They will reign forever and ever. Then the testimony. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to you with this testimony for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star. The Spirit and the bride say, Come. Let everyone who hears say, Come. Let everyone who is thirsty come. Let everyone who wishes to take the water of life as a gift. Then John falls at the feet of the angel to worship. The angel says, Do not do it. I am a fellow servant with you and your brothers the prophets and those who keep the words of this book. Worship God. The world cards dance, the four living creatures of the throne room who appeared first in chapter 4, who have been present throughout, who appear at the corners of the world card, are here at the end as they were at the beginning. Archangels. The wreath is the same. The dancer is what the fool became after 21 encounters. And then, the angel's refusal. I am a fellow servant. The figure who showed John everything, who guided him through the entire 22-chapter journey, will not be worshipped. He is not above the receiver, he is beside him. The hierarchy through which the journey was conducted ends with the hierarchy declining its own elevation. The world card is the state of integrated presence. The dancer and the wreath is not looking up at the four creatures as authorities. They are the frame of the completed awareness, the witnesses of the dance, fellow servants. 22-4-22. The quality of the argument does not decrease as the sequence progresses. The Hanged Man and Chapter 13 are an exact match. The text of Chapter 13 contains the phrase patient endurance, which is the Hanged Man's primary quality. The Hermit and Chapter 10 are an exact match. Both describe a private transmission of knowledge that is explicitly withheld from the general reader. The Tower and Chapter 17 are an exact match. Both describe a false structure that is destroyed from within by its own components. When 3 or 4 cards match, you have pattern matching. When all 22 match, with the quality of the match increasing at the most important stations, you have something that deserves a different kind of accounting. The 3 possibilities. The first possibility, both documents independently derive from a common source in the mystery school curriculum of the ancient Mediterranean world. This is the most historically conservative explanation. The initiatory sequence, the progressive encounter with ascending powers, the movement through chaos and ordeal toward integration, was the common property of a dozen different mystery traditions in the Hellenistic world. John of Patmos was writing in that world. The designers of the major arcana sequence, working in 14th or 15th century Italy, in the middle of the Neoplatonist revival that was recovering exactly that tradition, were drawing from the same well. Both documents map the same initiatory territory because both had access to maps of it. The second possibility. The sequence itself is prior to any specific cultural encoding. The 22 stages of the initiatory journey are not an invention, they are a discovery, the same discovery that Egyptian, Tibetan, Orphic, and Gnostic traditions all made independently when someone went far enough into the interior to find out what was there. The map is real. Both documents as maps of the same territory drawn from different vantage points at different times in different symbolic languages, arriving at the same 22 stations because there are 22 stations. The third possibility, which I raise not to endorse but because intellectual honesty requires acknowledging it, is that someone made the tarot correspondence deliberately, that the designers of the Marseilles sequence, working within the Hermetic and the Kabbalistic traditions that circulated in the courts of northern Italy in the 15th century, knew Revelation, and included the correspondence intentionally as an initiatory key. The tarot would have been designed to be read by those who already knew Revelation, so the 2 documents could illuminate each other for initiates who understood them as a pair. I think that the first possibility is probably the correct historical explanation. The third is possible, but not demonstratable from the documentary record. The second is the most interesting and the hardest to dismiss, because it doesn't depend on the historical contact. It depends on the territory being real. The prophecy reading of Revelation has been wrong about everything it has predicted, without exception, for 2,000 years. The Montanists expected the New Jerusalem at Pepuza. It didn't come. Joachim of Fiore calculated 1260. It didn't end. William Miller, 1844, nothing. The Jehovah's Witnesses, 1914, 1918, 1925, 1941, 1975. Tenacity, but not accuracy. Hal Lindsey's 1988 deadline. The Left Behind timeline, currently on its 7th or 8th revision. 0 successful predictions. In any other domain, this is not a model you continue to run. You abandon it and look for one that works. The initiatory reading doesn't make predictions. It makes claims about interior experience, about what consciousness encounters when it moves through a complete initiatory sequence. Those claims cannot be falsified empirically, but they can be verified experientially, and they have been by everybody who has followed the sequences seriously and any tradition that preserves it. The map didn't predict the end of Rome or the identity of the Antichrist. The map describes what happens to the person who follows it. Every reader of Revelation is, according to the initiatory reading, the fool in chapter 1, turning around, not knowing what they're about to see. The divine counsel that runs through the background of Revelation is the counsel that pre-Yahwist Canaanite theology described and that the Gnostics, drawing on preserved paracanonical traditions, kept alive when the Orthodox synthesis tried to suppress it. The 24 elders are not a Christian invention. They are the divine counsel, numbered and seated and active, performing the same functions, song, prostration, intercession, that council figures perform in the Ugaritic texts, in Enoch, and in the Psalms that preserve the older material. El's counsel, reframed and renamed, present in the text that the institutional church decided to include in its canon while destroying the Gnostic text that made the council's nature explicit. The 4 living creatures are the council's executive functions, the archangels, The faces of the lion, the ox, the eagle, and the man that Ezekiel also saw, and that appear on the world's carved four corners. They were there at the beginning of the vision. They are there at the end. They give the 7 angels the 7 bowls in chapter 15. They are the constant infrastructure of the governing system that the vision maps. Whether that system is benevolent guidance or archontic management is a question that the document raises and does not answer. The Gnostic reading says, the system that claims to be guiding you toward liberation may be managing you toward continued participation. The initiatory reading says the system is the curriculum, and the question is whether you graduate. The council doesn't tell you which it is. Neither does the tarot, neither does John of Patmos, who at the end falls at the feet of the angel and is told, "Get up, fellow servant." We started with 3 Johns. Let me close with them. John the Baptist stands at the threshold. He is the forerunner, the principle of preparation, the voice that calls the people to readiness before the transformation arrives. In the fool's journey, he is the condition of the fool, before the fool steps off, not yet in the sequence, already pointing at it. John the Evangelist writes the gospel that begins before time. In the beginning was the Word. He is the theologian of the eternal, the one who sees the journey from outside it and describes the metaphysical architecture. He is associated in tradition with the eagle, one of the 4 living creatures, and the face of the council that sees from the highest altitude. John of Patmos is the fool. He is alone on that island when the voice comes from behind him. He turns. He doesn't know what he is turning toward. He goes through all 22 encounters and comes out at chapter 22 with the angel saying, "I am your fellow servant, not your superior." The journey is complete. The dancer is dancing. 3 Johns. 1 is the threshold. 1 is the architecture. 1 is the journey. The tarot has always needed all 3. The book of Revelation is not a prediction. It is a map. And the map begins with a man alone on an island turning around because a voice told him to, and it ends with an angel refusing to be worshipped. The Marseilles Tarot is the same map and a different key. The fool stepping off the cliff and the fool at the end of the world card are the same figure at different points in the same sequence. Both documents know this. Neither says it directly. The correspondence is real. 22 for 22, card for chapter, and the order both documents actually follow, with the quality of the argument increasing rather than decreasing as the sequence progresses. The Hermit in chapter 10, the Hanged Man in chapter 13, the Tower in chapter 17, the World in chapter 22. These are not approximations. They are the same material in 2 encodings. Why 2 encodings? The simplest answer, because the knowledge needed to survive. The mystery school traditions of the ancient world were being systematically destroyed by Rome, by emerging institutional church authority, by the consolidation of official religion in every direction. The initiatory curriculum was put into a card deck you could carry in your pocket and claim was a game. It was put into a vision document by a man on an island who encoded it in the prophetic genre that the church was prepared to accept. Both survived. The angel at the end of chapter 22 says, "Do not seal up the words of this prophecy." In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Orphic tablets, and in the Tibetan Bardo teachings, in the tarot itself even, the instruction at the end is always the same. The map is available. The navigation is yours to do. The fool is at the cliff's edge. He always is. I'm John. This has been Conspiracy Slop. Thank you.